Here's a homegrown fit sample workout focusing on animal flow / natural movement and can be done anywhere requiring no equipment. We've got 3 rounds of 10 reps, 4 movements. Movement number 1 is a hip hinge. We're doing a single leg walking hip hinge with a kickstand first. So just a couple things to pay attention to when you're doing this. Don't arch your low back, keep it neutral. Also, let your gaze follow the transition of your body so your spine stays in one piece, which means don't look forward at the bottom of your movement, and also don't round that upper back. When you get to 10 reps, you can move on to the next movement. You'll just need a little bit of floor space. This is a lateral bear crawl. So begin by getting on your hands and knees and then turn your toes under and tuck your knees in a bit so your knees are pretty close to your wrists. And then you're going to step wide with the feet while your hands step together. Your trailing hand steps in as your leading leg moves forward or sideways. Once you get a few practice rounds in, it should come pretty easily without having to figure out what limb goes first. I want you to be able to do about 10 steps, 5 in each direction. Then you can come on down to the floor and get ready for a crab to table. So with the crab position, it sometimes feels most comfortable to keep your fingertips pointed out away from each other so your wrists have a little more space to move. And you're just sitting with your heels anchored and then driving your hips into hip extension. You can choose if you want to let your head drop back like I showed you a couple reps ago, or if you want to keep your chin tucked. Either one is okay. Whatever feels good is what you should do. Keep your heels anchored on the ground even as you extend to table. If they are having trouble staying down, you may want to step your feet out a little wider. Onward to the frog squat. Start with your feet about shoulder width apart. Bend your knees enough that you can get your hands at least tented through the fingertips on the ground, and then sit down into the bottom of an active squat and rotate 1 time in each direction. And then keeping your palms planted or fingertips tented, extend your knees and repeat. We're doing 5 rounds of this, so 10 reaches, but you're only dropping down to that squat 5 times. And don't get to the bottom of that loosey-goosey passive squat. I want you to be muscling this squat and ideally have your hips at or a little bit below your knee. Okay, since this is your 4th exercise for round 1, we're going to go back to the top, and I'm going to give you some options to make the next round more challenging, or you can stick with these basic movements and really hone in on getting the maximum range of motion and control in these positions. So we're back to the hip hinge. This time, as long as you can keep that toe pointing down, thigh internally rotating to the floor on the floating leg, then you can float that leg as you hinge. If you look back and you see your toe pointing kind of out at the window or the door instead of pointing down at the floor, then I want you to rotate your thigh, which will pull your hip around, into a square position with the ground. 10 reps again. And we're on to the next movement, which is a bear crawl, or you can get 1 step closer to your handstand by working on some push strength by a little lateral ape walk. I'm planting my trailing hand in line with my leading leg, and then I'm trying to shoot my heels out behind me and kind of jump over an imaginary little moat there. You can also kick your knee, or bend your knees and kick your heels up. Just be committal to one or the other, either nice, strong, straight knees or pulling the heels up to your butt. Sometimes that can help get some elevation. Next is the crab to table. This time the table can be with a single arm, with that opposite arm reaching straight up to the sky. We can add another element of difficulty. Instead of going down and touching down to crab, you can kind of scoot your butt back between your wrists or toward that position and then reach alternating. A really nice helper is having a couple yoga blocks, 1 under each hand, so you have just a little more space carved out underneath you to get your hips through. This position is more accessible the more you work on your compression strength or your core compression strength and hip flexor strength. So if you're not getting there today through that gap, don't worry. It's a journey, and I know how to help you work on it. Okay, 3rd exercise, that frog hip extension to squat. and rotate. So see, I'm pushing my knee with the elbow, pushing the knee out, and then I'm pushing my elbow against that. So you can have a little bit of traction, or you can use the ground. And this time, instead of extending my hips, I'm giving you the option of jumping back to a plank and then back into a nice wide stance that you can get your feet pretty close to your hands on the landing. You're also welcome to kind of walk it up a little bit if you need to get closer. This is also another great way to work on handstand because we need a lot of control when our feet are moving, not on the ground at the same time. All right. Third and final round, 10 hip hinges. Got a little dynamic strength/control challenge here for you. You're going to kick one leg up and then swing it back just like we did on the last round with the hip hinge. So it's a little quick kick, spring in the legs, and then control that hinge down on the standing leg. It can be tricky, so if you want to kind of walk along a wall and slide your hand along the wall as you do it, it might be a good way to begin. If it gets real sloppy, then just slow it down a notch or pull it back to the hip hinge with a floating leg. Okay, next movement is that bear crawl, or we can practice again that ape walk. And if you are feeling good and have been practicing this, then you can progress to trying to float your hips or stall just a moment over your shoulders and hands with your hips. Otherwise, if you're not there yet, just keep on playing. Your body's going to gain experience being upside down, and it needs a certain amount of time experience upside down before it's going to let you be okay with and find balance in that position. Last is the crab to table, and we've got a reach that instead of reaching up this time can go to the wall behind you. And again, you have the option of tapping your butt down to crab or tapping down and then shooting your hips through. I can't recommend elevating your hands enough because it's a nice feeling and it's a great way to practice that compression core strength when you drive your hips back on that crab. You're almost there. Just a couple more reps and you've got 3 sets of work in. Maybe this is the last one. It's the last one. Okay, all we have left is a little quad burner, that Frogger squat. Got another level notch to jump up if you want to try it once your wrists are feeling ready. Start with your fingertips tented. Sit down into your squat. Rotate once in each direction. And then you can jump back to your plank and then drive your hips to your heels and try to float back up. I think I'm gonna, rotate so you can see what that looks like. Squat, twist each way, jump back to a plank, maybe a short plank, and then drive your hips to your heels and push back up to that squat position. If you kind of kick your heels to your butt, it's amazing. It helps me feel like I'm flying for a moment. So if you are, again, working on handstands and want to feel that float, it's a really cool trick. Drive your hips back and down, and then kick your butt with your heels after you push off. It's really fun. And here's the final rep. Woohoo! Workout is done. Nice work. Pat yourself on the back.